from home. Of course, many have also lost their jobs, and this is also something that HR departments have had to deal with. So it's been a challenge for all of us. I know that my good friend and colleague Kun Direk will talk about the times that we live in, and I think all I would want to say at this point is that whatever we think the new normal means, and I defy anybody to actually define what the new normal actually is. One thing I would say is that we are expecting the times that we live in to be increasingly volatile, increasingly uncertain, and increasingly complex as well. So without further ado, I'd like to again to welcome you all. I wanted to just define the workshop as I understood it in terms of the scenario that rather uniquely everybody in the world more or less is facing the same challenges. Everybody in the world has to deal with COVID-19 and its impact on organizations, on individuals, on governments, on public health systems. And so in a sense, it's a perfect time because we have the opportunity to address things from a global perspective and from a universal perspective. But having said that, every country is different. Thailand has so far done very well with the pandemic. We hope that the measures that the government is putting in place will ensure that that continues. And as far as I can tell, Nepal has done fairly well as well. So without further ado, I'd like to again welcome you all, and we look forward to a very rewarding and enjoyable webinar. We appreciate your spending your time on a Saturday, and we hope to ensure that the next couple of hours will be spent as usefully as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, AIT Extension Program. I would like to share some of my own experience in the HR field in the Nepalese market, what I experienced myself and what I learned during the period of my experience within various organizations, and what I have foresee for the future. Just I'll take you through few slides. In between, if you do have any questions, you just put the questions routed through Sapna. We will try to answer your questions at the end of the QA session. Okay. Now, earlier stage. In terms of earlier stage, I haven't defined as the period or the time frame between when the earlier stage has started and up to when. Normally, I have considered earlier stages up to 1991, 92, or we can say up to 2000. Earlier in the Nepalese market, HR function itself has not been recognized as an independent function itself, considered as an administrative function. Most of the organizations has considered people-related cost as expenses, not the investment. Not perceived as a HR partner. Majority of the organization has not perceived human resource department as a business partner in their total business modality. Always, HR has been considered as one of the supporting function wherever and whenever top management or the core function expect to do something for the business, HR has been asked to fulfill, not play a business partner role in the beginning. Very few organizations have invested money on the training and development. Limited concept of training the people in-house. Always people intended to hire the trained staff rather than hiring a management trainee or hiring a fresh graduates and train them for their own module was very much limited. Welfare and engagement, majority of the organizations were just trying to comply the legal provisions of the country rather than being worked as a employee familiar or employee supportive programs. They are not much providing any such programs who is supporting to the employee engagement and the welfare. Majority of the organizations were not discussing about even for the motivation and the accountability, which is linked to the performance management system or the performance evaluation system itself. Very few organizations have introduced an incentive policy for the organizations, and the top level management only responsible for the deliverables. Majority of the middle class employee or the middle level employees and the frontline employees are considered do whatever I say to you. You need not to apply your mind, or you need not to apply for the any beyond the responsibility. On top of that, there is no defined job description or the job responsibility has been defined. Every day, people used to come to office, they are okay. Every day at the 5, normally, whatever is being expected out of them during the period has not been defined by the organizations. Probably the management concept itself is not operating on that mode. Very limited organizations were working on the reward and recognition mechanism, that also not defined properly. These are the few characteristics or the experience what I have collected for the first stage or the earlier stage of HR in the Nepalese market. Coming back to the present stage, this is I considered period 2000 onwards up to this year or to 2019 itself. During the period, majority of the organizations have been exposed to the various investors in the market. Several multinational organizations has came into Nepal. INGOs, some NGOs, and diplomatic missions have started operations. And local market has learned from those organizations and started, yes, we should have a different or independent HR function, which would be much more valuable to the business. After that, organizations have started HR as one of the major function. Still, people have accepted as a major function. However, still majority of the administrative responsibilities are there. Core HR responsibility would be minimal. If I say during these 22 years of experience with various organizations, more than 50 or 60% of workloads are administrative. Nowadays, the concepts has been changed. Some of the organizations have started core HR and the support functions separately. And in general, local companies are still battling to segregate between these two departments. Majority of the businesses has accepted HR as a business partner. Nowadays, people have a say. People have a say and a space at the business meetings, at the boardrooms, and the ideas are being asked from HR. HR can drive some of the business. Nowadays, training and development has been considered as one of the major activity. And this is a long-term investment. Now the organizations have realized, because if I'm not investing for my own people, I'm not getting anything from the market, which is readily available for my own business. Looking into this scenario, people have started investing on the training and development. Whereas the succession planning are also involved in the training and development process. Very few organizations have started this. Considering the MNCs and some of the major business houses only. Rest of the small and medium business organizations are still battling to work on the succession planning. Various welfare activities and the engagement modalities has been introduced in the market. Nowadays, if we talk with any HR practitioners in the market, they do have various engagement modalities, various welfare activities. Some of are intrinsic and some of are the non-intrinsic. Majority of the organizations are nowadays serious about the retention of the employees. And towards that, they are working for the various performance measuring models for their motivation and remain with the employer for a longer period. Similarly, organizations have started pay for performers and they try to retain with the people with managing their career progression, which was supported by various performance measuring models. Nowadays, structured comp and benefits are almost available in every organization. Now, every organization have defined their salary, minimum salary. These are the benefits for these job levels. These are the salaries for these job levels. Most of the organizations across the country have a structure. Now, this helps people to know what I supposed to get if I get promoted for the next level. What I supposed to get if I perform this, if I achieve this. Similarly, reward and recognition mechanism for extraordinary achievements or the contribute outside the box for organization has been established. Nowadays, people are not talking about delivery against your job description or delivery against your profile. People are talking about the efficiency and effectiveness. These concepts are being discussed nowadays. Various organizations have evaluated these things through their monthly review meetings, quarterly review meetings, biannual review meetings, and annual review meetings. And the HODs and the second line managers are responsible to their respective budgets and the deliveries with the quality and time. Present situation is very much lucrative for the outsourcing business suppliers. This is basically market is looking for special services or a specific jobs, a specific requirements. People doesn't want to get involved for everything. They are looking for a service provider who come with his own resource team, deliver the results, and go back. Organizations need not to accept the long-term responsibility for those service providers. Based on the service agreements, those outsourcing companies are providing services to the markets. This is a very earlier, this has been started around 2000 through the security business. Nowadays, this has been expanded in various segments in the market. However, law has permitted only 4 segments that we need to look into. And the compliance. Earlier, compliance was least bothered for every business. Nowadays, people are eagerly complying and eagerly talking about this. And by the new Labor Act, the annual labor audit report has to be submitted. And majority of the organizations have already done that. And in terms of long-term social security for the employees, people have started joining to the social security fund introduced by the government of Nepal. So these are the few characteristics or the few synopses what I have captured during the present situation. During this time, organizational branding, career progression, succession planning are being talked, and some of the organizations, especially MNCs, are working on this. Now, coming back to the 2020 onwards, this is the issue what we were eagerly waiting to discuss for few days. From my own experience, what I have derived now 2020 onwards, competitiveness on the deliverables are much more important for the organizations. Whether this would be for organization, for HR managers, or for the entire people, that will remain the same. Unless and otherwise we remain competitive, we cannot sustain now, because after this COVID-19 pandemic situation, majority of the markets are being shrink. Yesterday only, I read a news from CNBC regarding UAE market. 70% SMEs are expected to close. This is a very ridiculous scenario. I hope Nepal should not face those scenarios. Still, we are expecting lots of people, lots of Nepalese who were working in the foreign markets are coming back to Nepal. Majority of the organizations are not able to continue their businesses due to financial crisis nowadays. And managing those financial issues and the new workforce coming into the Nepalese market, the competitiveness on deliverables would be much more challenging now. Focus on the sustainability. Till yesterday or till before this COVID, we were always discussing about the employee welfare, employee engagement, employee happiness, employee motivation. Now, this is, as a HR business partner, this is our responsibility. Are we offering a sustainable model? Is this able to sustain for it long? If not, we need to rethink it. Otherwise, organization cannot be survived. Focus on top line and bottom line improvement. I believe most of the HR managers who have been exposed as a HR business partner has been discussing these things, but the SMEs, very limited exposure for this top line and bottom line. HR department or HR professionals also needs to understand the top line and bottom line issues now. Otherwise, we always been considered as a spending corner, not the profit-making unit. Handle the crisis in line with the business model or the requirements. Yes, there are challenges. However, we should not forget what is my organization's business model. What is the organization's appetite? What is actual requirement? And where we were being fit on that. That needs to be understood. Now onwards, required special skills for the HR fraternity itself. Performance, these are the few examples only: performance negotiations, flexible compensation and benefits, facilitation and training, mentorship and coaching, and stress management. These special skills will help us to survive post 2020 scenario. Value addition should be visible on the organizational profitability. HR needs to prove that, yes, I'm also contributing into the organizational profitability. That needs to be visible now. Succession planning, workforce diversity, and positive discrimination may require now onwards. We cannot get the ready-made resource from the outside who would be compatible with the organizational culture and the required diversity. This needs to be looked in within the business. Now training and development at the different sites seems a little bit difficult. Now learning should be emphasized through the virtual learning, peer learnings, and the job shadowing. Working culture needs to be reviewed. There could be flexi working times, work from home, target or project-based assignments. Increase outsourcing models. Because now the people are expecting the special delivery or the delivery with a limited cost, with quality, within time. This needs to be managed through the outsourcing special agencies. I hope if organizations can manage within their in-house resource, that would be good enough. Focus on compliance. Now the compliance would be on our head. Post-COVID, how to handle the headcounts, how to handle the compensation, how to handle the leave, how to handle the reduction. Everything is coming onto our head. This needs to be understood now. And continue on organizational branding, which will help us to get the right resources for the business. This may be continue towards the 20 and onwards. This may help you understand the organizational business model and the appetites. Revisit your numbers, budgets, cost, benefits, and policies, because without this, organizations cannot remain sustained now. Digitize as much as possible. Now, the way we are discussing here, same as we should try to digitize the business processes as much as possible to operate from the remote. Look for opportunity to remain competitive, sustainable in terms of quality and the cost. Create consensus between the stakeholders. Otherwise, it would be much difficult for us to implement the issues which are going to be with us once the lockdown is withdrawn. Plan B should ready at all the time. Execute the plan, however, should be remain compliant. Compliance is another headache. This is going to be on our head post lockdown is withdrawn. Continue to sharpen your saw. HR fraternity also needs to improve our learning, knowledge, skills to give the better delivery to the organizations. Now, I do have some questions. You may discuss, you may think over, and at the end of the session, we will discuss these questions. What will you do first day after lockdown at your office? Think over. What do you do to remain sustainable post this lockdown, post this crisis? How do you remain compliant post crisis situations? These are the few questions from my side. On top of this, my HR colleagues, you can think over. At the end of the session, we'll discuss about the questions. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks, Frox team and the AIT extension. Now, Shapana, please take over.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. Was really appreciating you. You provide us really important information, right? Now, now it's time for moving forward. I'd like to invite Dr. Drake for his session and take the space in this webinar. Dr. Drake, please welcome. Hello, Dr. Drake.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. And it's great to be having this webinar from different locations, especially I'm in Thailand and our participants are from Nepal. And it's a good session. So let me start my session. Welcome to our session. This is the way we greet in Thailand. We don't shake hands, but we raise our hands to say greetings in Thailand. And for today's agenda, we have three major topics that we'll be discussing. One is that I would like our participants to have a sort of a feeling that what are the business concepts and framework that is linked to businesses and that has an effect on human resources department. The second part will be exploring some HR philosophies for us to understand and see from another perspective that I usually like to share. And the third session would be like HR trends. What are the trends that are coming? And hopefully this presentation, which is for 45 minutes, will give some insight to all of us. And during my presentation, if any one of us want to ask questions, they can post the questions in the chat box, and then I will answer it at the end of the session. Okay?
Can ask if they can see your presentation.
Yeah.
Can they see the presentation? Can everyone see the presentation?
Can everyone see the presentation? Can everybody see my presentation? Okay. Everybody can, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I can.
Dr. Derek, your audio is muted. Dr. Derek, can you unmute your microphone? Dr. Derek, I think it's audible now. Yes, it's fine now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for
Could you please just do full screen this presentation? Just do slideshow in full screen. Yes, sir.
Okay, can we see the presentation now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I'll continue. Yeah. So sorry for the technical glitch over there. I'll again present my presentations. Yeah. So the agenda. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And sorry, thanks for waiting. So I'll continue with my presentation. Is that my presentation will be divided into three areas, basically business concepts and framework, exploring HR philosophies, and the human resources trends. Okay. So with that, I would like to It's okay. Yeah, so the agenda here, and the business concepts and framework. So the first thing that I'll ask participants is that how is the current business situation? Okay, what is our feeling that how's the current business situation? And mostly people will answer that we have this business model called the VUCA environment that everybody knows of this business here, which is VUCA. With this concept framework of business thinking was conceived by the US military during their operations in Iraq to explain the situation that was in the war zone. And eventually the business community picked up this because it really reflected a very good yeah, so the situation that here that comes about is that we have a situation where there is volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity. So that means, and right now, if we see our business environment, mostly it is in the framework of volatility, where the rate of change is very fast. We don't know what is happening, and we don't know going forward that what would be the business environment, which is quite difficult to predict. And so that is the first setting that I would like to mention. The second thing that I wanted to share with us is the stages of change that had occurred in this world. We call it the Industrial Revolution. And so far we have 4 industrial revolutions. Right now we are in the 4th Industrial Revolution here. The first industrial revolution started in the 18th century, the second in the 19th century, 20th century, and we are together here now. And what is this relevant for us in human resources? Because every time there is an industrial revolution, there is disruption of how we work. there's disruption of how we manage, and there's disruption of how we think in terms of businesses, right? For example, when we started the first industrial revolution, it was steam-based machine. Second industrial revolution, the emphasis was on electrical, energy-based mass production. And then in the third industrial revolution, this is where we had all the computer and internet-based knowledge. And in this fourth industrial revolution that we are experiencing here, which has a very high impact, and it is what we call where we have the artificial intelligence and information technology merging together with AI and the software, and we have big data and Internet of Things and cloud. So all this is emerging into what we call the fourth industrial revolution, and this is the second information revolution that we are experiencing here. And what is this if we say that, how does it reflect on the human resources function? If we see here in terms of resource management, in each industrial revolution, from the first industrial revolution to the second industrial revolution and the third industrial revolution, the main emphasis was on empowering corporations. That means how corporations become much more effective, how corporations become more efficient and produce more profits. Whereas in the fourth industrial revolution here, the importance here is what we call empowering people, and where they see that people would be the biggest resources, contrary to people thinking that if there are machines, there are AI, humans will be less empowered. But it is totally opposite, because human beings, especially human resources, will play a very important role here. And this is why we in the human resources area will have to understand that the importance of developing human resources becomes a very critical factor for the organization. The other business model that I would like to share is that if we see in terms of organization, the structure, in the past, the structure was what we call hierarchical structure. Then we move into a matrix structure, meaning we are very lean. We cut off a lot of levels. Senior management and junior management are much closer. And people also came away from silos. That means in a matrix organization, different departments, they work together. And going forward into the future, what we see will be happening is what we call network structure. Network structure here we mean is that organizations will be working on projects. Organizations will become smaller. We will be outsourcing a lot of our work to our business partners. And these business partners would be considered a part of our organization team. And this is where human resources will have to come and adjust their management into what we call a network structure over here. Now, once we are moving into the future, how will organizations become? What will be the organizations of the future? The structure of organizations, we see that there will be three types of organizational structure. One is where we say asset light. Asset light means organizations will invest in their assets very little here, and then in the platform ecosystem, they will invest a lot in the ecosystem. That means they'll invest a lot in digital transformation. This is what we will see organization moving to. And examples of this type of companies would be like Google, Uber, and all these companies that we see using a lot of digital platform as part of their assets. The second group of organization is what we call it the mixed structure. In the mixed structure, the physical assets and the organization structure And the ecosystem is quite similar. And we can see this as Apple and Amazon to be examples of a mixed structure. In organizations where we say it is asset heavy, meaning the structure of the physical structure, the hierarchical and the organization would be very big, and the investment in ecosystems and digital transformation would be quite small compared to their physical assets. And this we can see would be like organizations like automotive companies, Johnson Control and GE and Samsung. Yeah, and so we can categorize future businesses to be here. But as per what we see going into the future, organizations would prefer to go into the asset-like structure, meaning they'll keep their organizations small and lean, and then use this digital transformation to be their best practices to bring profits into their organizations. Another thing that we see occurring into the current and future is what we call the digital transformation of organizations. And here I use the word blur, B-L-U-R, blur, digital blur. It stands for boundaryless organization, limitless digitalizations, unbounded innovation, and relentless iteration. Meaning in the present business that are moving and into the future, organizations will be very boundaryless. Boundaryless here means they'll be very transparent. They'll be working with other organizations. There will be less competition to fight, but they will say that let's work together to provide a winning solution to our customers. And in terms of limitless digitalizations here, we see this as being that digital transformation of organization will play a very important role for future businesses that want to survive and want to make money and want to be successful. And with that, there is unbounded innovation. Unbounded innovation here means that innovation will play a very important role for future organizations. In the past, organizations will just say that innovation should be from our in-house, it should be kept secret, our competitors should not know our innovation. But organizations of the future, they say that, no, that is the old way of thinking. The new way of thinking is that we should use innovation as open innovation, get our partners and from outside people to join into our organizations to bring their innovation and use it into our organizations. Yeah, and there'll be relentless iteration. That means we'll have to work together as a team. And how we see that if we are going through all this digital transformation, then how would be the new digital culture? So in terms of the digital culture, when we are talking about boundaryless organizations, then the culture will be very open, peering. That means there'll be no boss or subordinate. It will be more of a team. And it is a society where we share information with each other. And in terms of limited digitalization, the culture that will be in the organization is what we call data-driven culture. Data will play a very important as a resource that will be used to make decisions and to see that what directions and what customers want and need. In terms of unbounded innovation, this is where we say that the culture would be very diverse and inclusive culture. Organizations would want more participation and more engagement from their staff. They want their staff to come up with a lot of ideas of how to improve organizations. And in terms of relentless iteration, what we see the culture is that it is a fail fast culture, meaning if we fail in something, it's okay. Not like in the past where you cannot fail. You always have to past. You always have to bring what's say a winning innovation. But organizations that in the future will say that if you fail in your initial innovation introduction, it is okay, but let that failure be a lesson for you to learn and then improve on it. Next, what we see will be happening in the future is that what we call is the gig economy. Yeah, the gig. I don't know whether a lot of us have heard this, but this is going to be the working norms of the future. Yeah, in a gig economy, it is. Okay, so the next business model concept that I would like to share is what we say that in the future we see organizations going forward and the economy going forward with what we call the gig economy. Meaning gig economies would be saying that people will be more independent. People will, organizations would want people to work on temporary or contract basis, or as a part-time basis, or as consultants, and they will have very short term assignments, and this would both benefit organizations and individuals. And the main platform will be applications that will be used for us to find either people that we want to work or employers who want to advertise that what they are looking for. So this is what will be happening in the future. Just to give some more example in the gig economy, in the new economy situation, is that we will see a lot of collaboration happening. There'll be a lot of changes in the work culture, right? That means we as people who are working in organization, we will have to be ready that there will be always changes. The changes will be coming very continuous. And in terms of gig economy, everything will be short. That means we'll have a short working contracts in the future. And then everything will be in innovation. That means people are very desperate to get new ways of working. That can you improve the way that we are working so that we are faster and we make more profits in that term. And then everything will be globalized. So that means we don't have to worry that, oh, we are in Nepal. Nepal is such a small country. How are we going to manage? In the new gig economy, the location is not important. It is more that what is your expertise and what knowledge do you have? You can be in Nepal, you can be collaborating and working for a gig assignment for American companies, for French companies, any companies that are in the world. So this is a quite good thing, because I've personally seen that we have a lot of Nepal students in Thailand, and we also in AIT, we have seen a lot of participants coming from our courses from Nepal. We found that people from Nepal are very smart, they are very good in IT, and usually the saying would be that they're quite bounded, that Nepal does not have enough opportunities for intelligent people and smart people in Nepal. And that is why Nepal has a lot of migrant workers where they go to other countries. But in future, with this gig economy, you can be at your home and you can be working with other corporations, and that would be a beautiful, I think, opportunity for people in Nepal. Yeah. Now, in this gig economy, why it is working? There are some critics. They say that the gig economy actually is not good. It is that means they are suppressing human rights. They are abusing people. But the top 10, there are some reasons why the gig economy is going to be quite successful in the future. Is that it enables people to balance their career and family needs. That means you can be at home and then you can work and then you can have a balanced quality life, right? You can also have 22% only way to make an income, because in future, when organizations want to become small, then it is the only way to make an income is to get into the gig economy, is that you work for short-term basis. And it can also be a good opportunity for us to make extra money. That means we are already working for a company, but we can also make money out of gigs. That means when during our holidays, on our weekends or at night, we can work for other companies through this gig economy framework. Okay. This framework that I wanted to show with you is that in terms of business perspective, what we see happening is that when business trends going forward, when you start your company, you have very high profits, you have very high customer numbers, you have very less competitors, and there is a lot of less uncertainties. But as your business grows, what happens is that when people see that your business is good, then your competitors start coming in, and then your competitors will start increasing. The other thing that will happen is that at the beginning of any business, you have a lot of customers, but because when there are a lot of competitors coming in, your customer base will gradually go down. And naturally, with your customer base, when you go down, your profits also will go down, right? Will go down. And a lot of things will happen is that the uncertainties would increase. So this is where organizations then they struggle, is that because this is as per the normal norms of any business organization. It is the nature of organizations. But what organizations have to do is that they have to ensure that their profits increase, their customer base increases, their competitors reduce, and uncertainties also is reduced. And that is where HR becomes a part of this strategy, is that how do we increase profits of organizations? How do we help the organization in terms that the customer base becomes bigger and competitors are less? And so that was what I had just discussed in terms of the business principles. Yeah. Now, here I'll be exploring some human resources philosophies to give a sort of an insight, is that what is behind some of the human resources philosophies. I think some of us may already know this, but my objective of sharing this is that I wanted to share it from a different perspective. Yeah. If we see on this slide here, this is how the human resource management evolved. Is that at the beginning, it was basically welfare management. Then it became personal management, and right now, this is where the modern trends is, where we have human resource management, which includes human resource development, and then we now call human capital management, because we see that the human resource is a capital to the organization. It is an asset, and human resources play a very important role nowadays, because they use what we call the strategic human resource management to ensure that the organization meets the targets that they are looking for. Just wanted to share this. I don't know whether the participants can send a chat. I just wanted to share that, can participants please write something that, what do you think, why did I show this slide to you? Is there any participants that would like to share that? What is the reason I showed this slide to you, and what do you think, what this represents? Yeah, we have some friends who already said this is yin and yang, balance, right? Sound. Oh. My sound is not clear. Yeah, good. Thanks to the participants who answered to my question. Yes, this is yin and yang, which is a Buddhist philosophy, meaning that in human resources, we need to be very flexible in terms and situation. That means we cannot use what we call one way of management. When situation arises, we in human resources need to be flexible. The white usually reflects being good. So they say that human resources, we have to play the good cop role. That means we have to be good to our staff. But when we are good, we also still have to be sure that we don't overdo it. And at times, human resources will also have to use the dictator's cap, is that when time comes for human resources to make decisive decisions that are considered to be not popular to the organization, we still have to do it. So human resources professional needs to be very flexible and need to adjust themselves according to times and according to situations of the organizations. This is another slide that I've shown. This is what we call in human resources, we call this the iceberg theory. Would any participant like to write why I'm showing this slide to all of us? What do you think what I want to convey from this slide? Is there anyone? No? I'll give you some time to think. Yeah, just a minute for some of our participants to write their feedback. Okay, excellent, excellent. Yeah, thanks for your inputs. It reflects the working principles in HR. What I like to share that is in HR, usually we in the HR field should not focus on what is the scene. That means this is the iceberg theory. In the iceberg theory is that 3/4 of the issues or the problem cannot be seen because it is hidden. What usually people want to solve the problem or what things they want to solve is usually the first 1/4 which is seen. And that is why sometimes when we use this to solve the problems do not get solved because the real reason for the problem is that it is hidden and it cannot be seen. An example which reflects in human resources is that in recruitment, when we recruit people, usually we can only see 1/4 of themselves. They come well dressed, they come well prepared. We know which universities they have studied, what degrees they have, what organizations they are working. But in the interview is very important. That is why the interview process in human resources, we have to make sure that we explore and we are able to understand the unseen of that person. And if we are able in our selection process, recruitment process, if we are able to tap into the unseen, that is where we will get good quality staff. And if we during our interview sessions are not able to tap into the unseen of the candidates, that is where we will get candidates into our company and we realize that they are not fit for our organization. So basically this diagram, I just wanted to reflect that human resources work is always exploring the unseen. And if we are able to solve these problems, then organizations that we handle will not have issues. I think I'll skip this slide. Just excuse me for a while. Another human resources philosophy that we in HR are very good in working is that when we have candidates or we have staff in our organizations, usually our staff are from the arts background or science background. That means arts is basically, that means when they do their schooling, they have like Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of English, all those, or Masters in Management. We call this as the arts background, people with a circle. People from a science background, basically meaning like engineers, doctors, accountants, they fall into what we call these people with the science background, and usually they are seen to be as a square. Okay, so human resources need to understand that what we need people to be very productive in an organization is that they use their arts background and they have to link with the science background and become a new person. Yeah, and become a new person. That is where the training, the orientation, the workshops, continuous improvement is needed. Because in businesses, to be successful, each staff in our organization, each individual will need to have the experiences of both areas of arts and science to be able to become good staff and future leaders of the organization. Now, I just kept silent for 1 or 2 minutes just to keep participants rest a little bit, because I've been going too fast and maybe I'm putting a lot of information for us. Yeah. So now I'll go to the HR trends. Okay, HR trends. What will be the HR trends that will be occurring in the future? And hopefully this session will provide a different perspective from different angles. And hopefully we can get questions from you in terms that do you agree, or would you like to get more information on what is happening in these human resources trends? Yeah, the first trend that we see happening in the human resources function is that in the past we think that human resources can either be administrative expert or employee champions and strategic partners and change agent, depending on which time or which part of the organization needs us to do. That means we usually have to change ourselves in these 4 areas. But what we see that in future, HR personnel, HR experts would have to be very strong as change agents in the coming term. That means this is where your role and this is where you will be seen whether are you providing value-added services to all your organization as a change agent. Because of the uncertainties of future business environment, organizations will need human resources who are very strong change agents. That means you are able to manage a transformation of the organization and then making sure that the transformation is effective and the change is helping the organization. The other role that the human resources will be coming across is that traditionally on the left, we know this is how usually we are working, but going in Okay, so this is like so human resources would have to work in what we call an agile management arena. And what this means is that for human resources, we will be implementing we as human resources will need to come up with implementing a lot of programs, systems, strategy, which will foster expertise for our future staff. And another trend that we see is that in terms of human resources, from the traditional to the digital human resources, and this is also happening here, is that we in human resources have to move a lot into the digital arena, where we can have like accessible for from anywhere. We reduce the paperwork. Yeah, and where we have to be very cost efficient, time efficient, and everything has to be transparent. And this is what we say would be the new norms in human resources. The next slide that I'm showing is some of the areas that HR will be seeing a lot of transformational trends. The first thing would be human resources would have pressure to deliver greater business impact. That means we will be seen as business partners. We will not be seen as business in terms of administration. We will be seen that we should also be part in driving the business success. And then in human resources, the expectation would be that we will have to have expectation of the millennial workforce. That means these are the new workforce and they have a lot of expectations. And this is where we have to manage them. And then the other transformation would be is that employees will be consumers. That means the shift would be is that we will treat employees as our customers. And then human resources will be seen that we will require to make everything quite simple for the work environment. We should not bring complications into the processes. We're seen to that we'll be bringing simplification. And human resources, and I think what we'll be doing is that we'll be increasing the skills gap. That means we need to understand what are the gaps our staff are having, and then we as human resources will make sure that the gap that our staff are having, they can improve in those areas. We will be sharing these slides to participants. So some slides I will just go over these slides because of the time factor, and so I will not discuss some slides. So the next slide which I want to show would be is that in terms of human resources, this is what people will be thinking is that what will be the skills that will be necessary for future professionals. And these are the top 10 skills that the World Economic Forum has come up with, is that they see that for professionals to be successful in their professional career, these would be the top 10 skills that will be needed for the future. And if we see point number 3, creativity has really increased, because in 2015, creativity was number 10. But from 2020 onwards, we see creativity as a very, very critical skill that organizations will need for the organizations to survive. Yeah. Another trend that we see organizations that would rely human resources to work on is that building what we call the trust factor. Because in future, when everything is moving fast, if in future, if there is a drive for people to work at home and all these things, then the culture of trust has to be brought into the organization. And as human resources professionals, there are 5 areas where we see that trust can be brought into an organization. The first thing will be the self-trust of the individual. Second is the relationship trust, relationship trust of the staff in our organization, and the organizational trust. That means employees, human resources in our organization, they trust the organization. And also market trust. Market trust here meaning our consumers, our customers, they trust our brand, they trust our products. They see that we as an organization bring services that can be trusted. And the last trust that we see human resources bringing to the organization is what we call the social trust here. That means what is the organization contributing back to society? And this is what we call the CSR. And usually people say it is a CSR where you build the CSR to show that you have a trust in your society. So this would be the key underlying principles that human resources will have to work in. How do we bring trust as a sort of a company framework? Yeah, my last slide would be this, that how HR needs to transform. So we've been talking a lot that this is happening, that is happening, the trends are here, but if we have, as human resources professionals, how do we need to transform? So the first thing that human resources need to look at is the digital workforce. That means, are we empowering and connecting our workforce with a modern digital experience? That means, are we bringing in new digital applications into our organization to make it a digital workforce? So this would be one area where human resources professionals need to work on. The second would be the digital HR. That means HR would need to bring all of their processes into digital, making it much simpler for people to use the services. And the third one would be the digital workforce. Yeah, that our staff that are working in our organizations, are they ready for? Are their skills ready for being in a digital world? Yeah. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and now we look for any questions that you have, and we'll be more than happy to answer for it. So I'll give it back to Ms. Sapna to please coordinate again. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Drake. And it was really informative. So, dear all, after this, we'll be moving towards a Q&A section. You can place your questions with the speaker's name or facilitator's name in chat box, or you can raise hands under that participant section, so we can our speaker can answer you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sapna, and Dr. Derek. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Right now, we are able to know about even the industrial revolution, the role of HR in different stages, and the challenges coming to the HR. And Pramod sir, thank you so much for localizing all the HR process. Like, in fact, what we are facing now, what we are going to face in near future, right? So I would like to ask one question from myself. I will be coordinating for remaining some other questions, right? So let me ask one question to Dr. Derek. So it's really easy to see to one side only. If you are looking for only HR part, human resource part, then it will be easier to handle the process and all. So how the HR can be balanced, for the both business and HR, taking together to the next level. So I think based on your experience and your practice in global prospect, you can share about it so that we can learn something from this. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bimo. Is that how HR can be balanced is that I think, and this is, I'm talking from my perspective, and maybe Mr. Pramod can help me in terms of it. What I've used and what I've seen was my success factor is that it is the human resource person themselves. That means we in human resources need to understand the business. Okay, for example, when I was in General Motors, I was in human resources, but the president, he told me, hey, Mr. Direk, you are in human resources, but you cannot sit in your desk. You have to work in the assembly line to understand the pain and suffering and the happiness of the people. So the first thing is that for a HR professional to be balanced is that we need to understand and be very strong in our human resources philosophy, and also second, understand the businesses in which company we are working. What is their technical expertise? We need to understand that. From there, we have a balance. Second is that we should always think that our staff are just like our brothers and sisters. And that once you see them as your brothers and sisters, you do not see them as your employees. That is where you become a sort of a balance to your staff. But you should also ensure that being too good to your staff doesn't annoy your your bosses. Your bosses will not say, hey, Mr. Direk, you are being too soft. You are always siding with the human resources of our organization. So the balance is that we also need, what I've seen is a lot of communication with the bosses and with the staff to understand. And we become the catalyst to ensure that the jigsaw is pierced properly. So that means we have to be very assertive. To be a balanced HR, we have to be assertive. Assertive meaning here, we should not be afraid that when we meet our bosses, and our bosses, like when I go to my boss in another company will say, Direk, I don't want to see you. Every time you come, I know I have to spend money. You always come for money. So if I was afraid of him or her, as a human resources, I would not dare to go to that person. But because I knew that I have to be balanced, I didn't care for that. Yeah. So this is from my perspective.
Okay. So let me ask you.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is.
So you speak. Okay. There is one participant, Mr. Binod Bidari. He is raising hand, so I'm unmuting him. If you allow.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. Mr. Binod Bidari, if you are hearing, please unmute and you can speak now.
Hello, are you listening?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Drake. I want to ask one question. So how HR can be utilized in this pandemic? Like many people are sitting in their house, not doing any online works and others, and they don't know, actually they don't know the way to do the works from house also. How can actually the people staying in home can work through their home in this pandemic time period? Dr. Drake.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for asking this question. I think the human resources, what happened is this pandemic was quite a unique situation in this world where people did not expect it and it came too fast. So we in the human resources arena were not prepared. And when there was a lockdown, we asked the staff to go back. There was no plan for what we call business continuity or what we call for business risk. And I think this is what in future human resources need to have, that what would happen if there is a business discontinuity, how does the organization proceed with its work. So right now, I think the critical part which we see that when staff are at home, they themselves have not been guided that what are the things that they can help the organization by staying and working at home. So the biggest thing is that human resources will have to do a lot of communication. Human resources will have to communicate with the staff, get information, what are they suffering, what they want. So it is more like communication and understanding of the staff, and what the staff are also looking in terms of this type of situation is that they are looking for direction from the organization, from the leadership. So the leadership they are waiting that, hey, please give us some direction and then we will follow it. That is my point of view. I hope it could be a useful factor for that, Mr. Vinod, right?
Thank you. Thank you. That means the organization need to now think about for business re-engineering, that they have to allocate the certain tasks to the HR who is staying in the home, no?
Yes, sir. You're correct. Correct. So that means we did not have this in our like maybe work procedure or standard operating procedures in the past. So this would be a good time where these procedures and standard operating procedures should be put in place, that how should we bring our staff to work at home. You're correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, Dr. Drake. Again, we have a question from Ajay Kumar Kadel. His question is, what's one process or practice that you'd like to, oh God, okay. I just missed it. Okay, just a minute. Okay, you'd like to see our I'm repeating question again. Sorry for that. What's one process or practice that you'd like to see our team or organization revised or stopped post COVID-19? He was asking. Mr. Ajay Kumar Kadel is asking this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ajay. I think one thing that we would like to see is that happening is that the trust. It means we have to help build trust into our organization. That means we must trust our staff, because in the past, when we wanted to have work at home principles or guidelines, usually management were against it, because they say, we don't trust our staff. When they are at home, they may be not really interested in working. They were maybe working on their personal area. So the first practice that I think management or organization or human resources will bring would be the principle of trust, which I mentioned. We need to trust our staff. For example, when we trust our children will do the same thing to us. So it is the same thing. We build the trust in the organization that if our staff are at home and we have given them a specific job, they will do it. And we give them the trust will come back.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
There is one question from Mr. S.R. Singhvi. So he was asking, let me read the queries of what he has sent. Thanks, Dr. Derek. Nice and different presentation. What is your view, the way we go fast on digitization? Fear, digitization fear, so losing manpower or rationalization of manpower?
Yes, sorry, can you please repeat the question again?
What is your view, the way we go fast on digitization fear of losing manpower or rationalization of manpower?
Losing manpower. Let me.
So are you there,
Let
SR
me read.
Singhvi?
Yeah, just let me. Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah. Just 1 minute. Let me see. Sorry. Just because it is a very good question that I would really want to really
It
spend
is.
some
It has
time.
been asked in 4:32.
Hmm.
Yes, sir.
By time.
Okay, you can read the question. What is it?
That's the way we go fast on digital field. Thank you for this question. Yeah, this is always a very critical question, is that when we digitalize, people think that manpower would be lost. And if we bring this philosophy that when we want to bring digitalization, we will remove people, then your digital transformation in the organization will not work. But how we in human resources should support the organization is basically saying that we will bring digitalization. One is we will not reduce any manpower, but second is that we will not increase any manpower in the future. Okay, and then whatever that is administrative job, or for example, in human resources, we have a staff that is doing payroll, right? And then we digitalize payroll, which releases her responsibility. But organizations should not remove that staff, but organizations should promote her into another position or move her to another area where she would be more confident. The organizations that I've worked with, they have a plan. When they bring digitalization in, they also have a plan, but no plan is 100%. The only thing is that management will have to communicate to the staff that we are bringing digitalization, but we will not remove anybody. But we will not increase anybody in the future. For the next 3 years, there'll be a job freeze because we are bringing digitalization. And staff will appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Here is another question. There are many questions. I'm really sorry. We are just taking a few questions, and we are trying to merge the question. In fact,
Okay.
Dr.
Yeah.
Derek,
Yeah.
there is one question from Dipesh Panshrestha, sir. So, Dr. Derek, you talk about the need of HR professional to be agile.
Mm-hmm.
How could HR help in building agile work culture in an organization? Further, agile term is being perceived as very technical jargon.
Yeah, usually people, thank you for this question, is that usually people, when they say agile, they think it's very technical, it is very only IT based and all that, which is a misconception, it is just a new word. Agile is just a new word. The old word for agile is change management, flexibility, working flexibility. The reason we are using the word agile is because a lot of IT professionals were very instrumental in bringing this philosophy of agile into building. That means there is no structured organization. Everybody uses their expertise and passion to develop a product or service. So that means the first thing is that we in HR have to become very good communicators. We have to communicate, we must become more, if we have been communicating very well, we have to improve our communication skills. We have to ensure that we communicate more on these things. Second, we in the human resources area, we have to be learners. That means anything that is new in the organization, we in HR have to learn them before the organization. We have to learn what is the meaning of agile, what is this bringing, and how will it impact our organization, and how can we replicate agile into our organization. But I think as human resources, I think we cannot run away from agile, because one is that nowadays it is very difficult to get manpower, very difficult to recruit people. So it is better that the staff that we have, we make them agile by making them multi-skilled, by training them, or maybe asking them that what is it that they have, but they have not told us. Sometimes a lot of staff, like I have seen some staff, they are in logistics, but they're very good in IT. So what we did is that we made this person become a trainer in IT, and he was able to do a better job than the IT people. So that is my conclusion. That means, as an HR professional, we have to be good communicators. We are good. We have to be better communicators, and we as HR professionals have to be good learners and learn more.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So here is another, there are many questions, but still I'm taking one question from Mr. Pramod Acharya. Pramod, sir, here is one question from Benita Kuikal. So my question is for Mr. Pramod Acharya, as well as Mr. Derek, what module would you suggest for the company which is not technology friendly, especially automotive companies? Pramod, sir, are you there?
Should I respond or Dr. Direk?
I think you can also do that because he's so tired today.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you don't mind, Mr. Pramod, can you start first? Let me drink some water.
Sure. Sure. First of all, HR manager needs to understand the business modality and the organizational requirement to adopt the HR module. Once you understand what is your business, what they actually, and what is the capacity or the appetite of the organization, and which module you want to go further. You want to reduce your business size, or you want to continue with the same numbers, same volume, same profitability, or you want to just take a pause on the business. First, you need to understand that. Accordingly, you can strategize your HR policies and processes accordingly. This would be my response.
Okay, so Dr. Derek, do you want to add something here, or shall I take another question?
Yeah, I think let's take another question. Yeah.
Okay, so there is another question. How can we narrow the gap of the credibility of the human resource towards management? This has been asked by Anjil Ratnatulada.
How can we? Sorry, can you repeat?
Oh, how can we narrow the gap of the credibility of the human resource towards management?
Can Mr. Pramod, can you?
Yeah, let me respond.
Yeah.
First of all, we need to understand the HR needs to work as a pool between the employee and the top management. We should clear what we are going to do. There should be a trust building between the top management and the HR. Otherwise, we always would be a loser in face of the employees. That's why once we are clear what, when, and how HR is going to communicate or implement, if that is being aligned between top management and the HR fraternity, it would be always a trustworthy situation. And we never ever would be in a difficult one.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Here is another very important question by Mr. Jagdish. This is very little bit long with compared to other questions. I think life is much easier for INGO staff who can work from home, but think about service industries such as hospitals. How we encourage staff of hospital, and I think we need a SOP to cover health and safety of staff, particular in relation to COVID-19. I think life is much easier for INGO staff who can work from home. Maybe it's repeating how we encourage staff of hospital, and I think we need this same. I mean, his concern is how to manage or how to keep motivating the employees at hospital in this scenario. So he's asking like this. In summary, Pramod sir, I think you can.
Okay. First of all, we need to understand at what kind of are in hospital. The people who are serving at hospital, it's by their own choice. They need to understand the importance or the urgency of the services, what they're supposed to deliver. If it is there, they need to abide by the ethical requirement of such responsibilities towards the job. Accordingly, HR has to manage the basic minimum numbers, whatever we can, whatever we should have at the minimum to maintain the business at this COVID situation.
Okay.
We try to reshuffle the duties, we try to exchange the people, we try to reduce the number of hours to be exposed in a risk. We can do several other activities to motivate people to remain alert and delivered at the business as per the business requirement.
Thank you
We
so
can
much, sir.
we can keep on communicating, we can keep on supporting people, we can help them in a other way of around to remain motivated while the situation is worse.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So here is another question from Mr. Engineer Salikram Parajuli. So he's asking a question relating to work from home policy. So the question is, what is the international practice on work from home, basically by the perspective of work and life balance, because people have to work extra more and more hour while working from home, basically technical person taking care of operation and maintenance. So Dr. Derek, I think you are more experienced in work from home and something policies, right? So you can answer better, I guess. And Pramod sir, you can tackle later.
Yeah, okay, thank you for this question. Yeah, there is always, this is the biggest question, the most favorite question asked about working at home. And then usually from an international perspective is that when a direction is given to staff to work at home, the expectation is that they should not spend more time than how they would have spent at their office. For example, they use 8 hours in their office, so they are expected to work 8 hours at home. We do not give them expectations that you are supposed to work 10 hours because you are at home. Then that is being overburdened, and that is what is considered is that bad human resources practice. But usually when we give staff to work at home, that means when I was in General Motors, we started this 20 years back, where we have every staff work at home on 1 week a day. 1 week a day, that means the staff has to be there. They are given targets, what to do. It is very surprising that our staff are able to finish it faster than 8 hours, because they don't have to go to the toilet, they don't have to go to the water bottle corner, they don't have to chit chat with their friends, but they just devote themselves. So from our perspective is that staff become more, they are more productive working at home. One is because they don't have to travel, they don't have to hassle in the traffic jam, they don't have to go when it is there are heavy rains or weather. In their home, they are very comfortable. They know which is the best corner for them to work and not be interrupted by their family members. So the international practice is that one, there is a policy that why we need to have work at home is that for a better quality of life. That means people don't have to travel in traffic jam, they stay at home. Second is that it's very transparent from international companies, where they say that what is expected of you when you are working at home. And for example, you work at home you are expected to work 8 hours, but you complete your job within 4 hours. The next 4 hours, it is up to you, because it is just like a trust. You have done your job, you can go anywhere you want. So the trust factor plays a very important role in work at home. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Pramod sir, once again, there is a counter question for you. And
Yeah.
First day at work, first day after lockdown, right?
Yeah.
So that again, the question is coming back to you. I think we have very limited time, sir. So just try to minimize
my question towards that: have you prepared to handle the employee concern? Have you done your homework during the lockdown? Have you prepared the communication material? Have you aligned with your management what you are going to do post lockdown? Have you checked the legal compliances? What needs to be completed immediate after the lockdown? Is your business continue on the same pattern? Are you going to downsize? Are you going to retrench people? How you are going to compensate these lockdown periods? Have you done homeworks prior to hand? That I want to understand from a participant perspective. I'm not asking, have you done these homeworks? Because at the first day at office, always people expect the HR. Management expect people, HR should handle the people. People expect HR should respond my concern. Am I being not, I haven't been paid for last 3 months because majority of our Nepalese organizations hasn't fully paid for last Chaitra as well, as I heard from some of the people from some of the organizations have paid as an advance. Some of the organizations still haven't paid for the Vaishak. And how long this pandemic situation will continue? How we are going to compensate? How we are going to reduce the salaries of people? What are the legal provisions? My concern is that, have we done the proper homework from our end as HR?
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So there is another question from Mr. Ravindra Karki. How can restructure of the organization can be done? Please share the best practice. So I think Dr. Derek.
Derek, is there any specific expectation?
So how can we restructure the organization after COVID? That is the intention of this.
How do you want to continue your business model? Based on that, you need to restructure. Probably you can club some of the jobs together. Probably you can cut down some of the operations. You can reduce the business size itself. You can look for some of the experts to deliver you the services rather than having a medium career level staff. Or you can have a more skillful resources to deliver the results. You can look for the technological advancement versus the manual working. It may not happen at all the business verticals, probably in the sales, in the marketing, at the frontline services and the service businesses. This may not work exactly, but we need to understand the existing business model versus post-COVID, how we want to operate as an organization. And only HR can work as a change agent, the way Dr. Derek has mentioned in his PPT. HR needs to act 100%. HR needs to work as a change agent now.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we have similar questions. I think this question is intended to Dr. Derek. So because we wanted to know the international practice, is it feasible to terminate employee in this pandemic situation? That means legality is one thing. I don't know exactly, but it is feasible to terminate employee in this pandemic situation. There is a question from Nita Karanjit.
Yeah, if we thank you for this question, because this is what always comes to the mind of the people. Usually in terms of, I think, labor law of any country, you cannot terminate anybody without reasoning, without reasoning. The organizations, they will say, yeah, we suffered because of this pandemic. We didn't do business for this week. But if the organization decides to terminate the staff has a right to go to the labor court to say that, this is just only temporarily, it is not on a long-term basis. So to terminate employees, usually when I advise companies that I give consultation, I say termination during this type of situation, we should not think of the person that we are terminating, but we should be thinking of the person who will be staying. So it's, for example, your organization has 100 staff and you feel that because of this pandemic, you only need 80 staff. So you think you have to terminate 20 staff. But what happens is that, okay, you terminate 20 staff, the 20 staff, they get their compensation, they go back home, they stay home, they're depressed. But the motivation factor of the 80 people who are in your organization is more important. The 80 people who are in your organization, they will never feel safe. They will say that, will there be a second wave? So every time that we in human resources, when we have this type of pandemic, that is where we usually need to talk to our management is that, can you please slow down your termination process by 1 more month? Like last month, I had a Thai company where I advised, and it was the same thing. The owner wanted to terminate 80 workers. I told him, sir, my suggestion is that please wait for 1 more month and let us see what happens. So the owner believed in me because he's paying me to give consultation. What happened is that after 1 month, he realized that, the situation was not that bad. And if he had terminated those people, for them to return back to normal in their business operation would have been an issue. That means if they had terminated workers and then their orders started coming, they cannot get new workers, because what happened, I think Nepal and in Thailand is the same. When you terminate workers, they will go back to their hometown to work in the fields and all that, and then to bring them back is very difficult. So if after the pandemic, when the business moves forward, HR and the management will find that it is very difficult to get new workers recruited, and that will affect the company. So we in human resources should let the owners see that picture that, hey, if you terminate people, you will not be able to get back. The owners usually think the other way. They say, let us terminate 20 people. And after COVID, there are so many people who are out of a job. When we advertise, we will get easily. No, you will not get it. You can get easily, but you will not get the people that you want. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We have many questions. Definitely, I'm really sorry to have to say sorry to many participants. You have, and I must thank for your active participation. In fact, right. So there is one question from Mr. Mohan Thapa. This will be the last question for now. So we will take this forum separately. We are creating HR Trendz group, in fact, in WhatsApp or in Viber, in maybe in LinkedIn. So there is one question. So if Pramod or Dr. Derek can answer it, just one question, last question. How performance management system should be taken care in this pandemic situation? What KPIs are to be considered? Maybe it's a relevant question to the COVID work from home and the productivity and all. So in a very short, sir, we have very limited time. Yes, sir.
Okay, let me respond to Mohanji. Mohanji, thanks for putting the question. Have you revised your KPI during this lockdown period, or still you want to maintain the same KPI for people who are working from home? First of all, we need to understand, if we haven't revised the KPIs for these situations, we cannot conduct the performance evaluation.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your active participation and your patience, even because of there was technical error and there are many things happen in between, right? So still we try to manage, I hope. And we are also planning to have a similar session maybe next week, maybe next Saturday. So thank you so much to Dr. Derek for your time, right? It's really, really awesome. And it's a really informative session for us all and all of us. And then Pramod sir, we are really happy.
Before concluding, Bimalji, I had a request to you. Because probably we could not answer all the questions what participants has put together on the chat box as well. Please try to compile all the questions, direct towards Dr. Derek and myself. We will try to respond those questions on the email, and post that you can share with the respective participants and even into the platform where people can understand, because due to the time constraint, we could not respond all the questions.
Yes, sir. We have already done so, because we have also created a Facebook group or Viber group, WhatsApp group, right? In fact, so we will definitely put this question in that group as well, where I can add Dr. Derek if you are available to answer those questions. We will be more than happy to get you in that group, right? So thank you so much, sir, Pramod sir, for the suggestion. And before thank you all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Pradeep Das, for this all arrangement, because he was, dealing with many things regarding the technology and the getting the expert on the field and many things. Now, I think AIT Extension Program Director, Mr. Pradeep Das, is your call, sir.
Thank you very much. Particularly,
so we have a call.
I would like to really give special thanks to all the participants who really took their Saturday time to join our special webinar, which is again, this is the first one, but this is going to be our regular activities. AIT Extension is joining with FoxPro to Fox Jobs to have this kind of webinar. From our side, we would like to give special thanks to Pramodji for giving the Nepal HR perspective, and our global speaker, Dr. Derek, who is a regular resource person, speaker in our training program, also took time from his busy schedule to deliberate and discuss this unprecedented situation when we all are going through during this COVID time. It's definitely much more challenging for the HR directors, HR professionals, because they have to really align with the so-called CEO of their respective organization. In 1 hour, we managed, or 2 hours, we managed to address some of these critical issues. And definitely we are coming out with new topics, new session next week and following weeks. So thank you very much, and looking forward to your participation and next week perhaps. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you all, Kanlaya, and the all IT team from Thailand, and Pradeep, sir, and Sapna for coordinating this. And thank you so much for the all participants, for your active participation, in fact, I would say. So we will be connecting through different means, like maybe it's through WhatsApp group, from LinkedIn group, whatever. So we will again, get back to you with another program that will be more into managerial, the leadership level. And the expert will be again from AIT Thailand. Promoter will, Pradeep sir will arrange for that, I think. So thank you so much for the panelists and Promoter and Dr. Derek once again. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay happy, stay prepared. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.